NatCon is becoming a powerful engine for advancing conservatism in America and well beyond. The stakes couldn't be higher. This is all playing out at a really interesting time. There's two visions for this world right now. You know, it's the backdrop of a New York City mayoral candidate running on socialism or maybe communism in our nation's capital of capitalism. It's kind of hard to believe, but then you juxtapose it against what's going on right here, what's happening with America at 250 next year, and a return to the moral foundations that built this country on Judeo-Christian values, a respect for religious freedom, and rebuilding a culture of faith and freedom. And so building is exactly what I'd like to focus on, because we're finally doing it again, thanks to having a commander-in-chief who is perhaps the best builder in the world. That is President Trump. Together with his administration, which is such an honor to be a part of, we are rebuilding this nation. President Trump's leading a historic comeback after years of neglect, abuse, and waste of a nation that we have held so dear. Thankfully, ours is a resilient nation. You look at what happened over the last 16 years, 12 of it, we survived the policies of Obama and Biden for 12 years. And while great damage was done, obviously the tide's turning quickly, and we are building together with you and the broader private sector a new America First economy. And that means that America is exceptional again. It means generational prosperity is once again possible for working families in forgotten places, like the community I grew up in, heartland communities that were completely written off when empty promises of globalism hollowed out thousands of small towns and millions of dreams. So thanks to November 5th, 2024, the U.S. is undergoing an important moral, economic, and national security transformation, probably the biggest since the Industrial Revolution and the Cold War. President Trump is obviously putting the government back to work for the American people, and the American worker and American industry are finally back at the heart of it. So obviously, prior to President Trump, hardworking Americans were really caught in a downdraft of decline, stuck in what I call an upside-down economy. Private sector healthcare became dominated by government. Schools became dysfunctional under federal bureaucracy and politicized unions. Good jobs were outsourced to China. Alaskan energy producers were sanctioned more than Iranian oil producers. Main Street businesses were buried by unreasonable red tape and climate demands. We saw it over and over. Inflationary spending and rising interest rates drove working families, farmers, and small businesses to the brink. And it was a doom cycle that felt like it was accelerating. And I saw it from an early age. I mentioned I grew up in a small community, and I'm known for my work in politics and business, but really who I am is where I came from. I grew up in a family farm, a 5-generation farm, working in the fields, waiting tables at Main Street restaurants. I was the first in my family to graduate from college, and I was blessed to attend college in the 1900s when the education was still about practical, useful topics. So our small town of 600, their last remaining employer, besides our grain elevator, was the Union Apprenticeship and Training Center. But it too was shut down when manufacturing jobs left the Main Street and our town was hollowed out. So the bureaucracy's growing power and money grab crowded out the American dream for too many. And too many were indifferent to their plight. And you know better than anyone the toxic combination of rising state power, globalization, was never just a trend. It was a choice, in the same way that managing decline is a choice. It fed corporatism, it fed government's insatiable appetites while simply offering lip service like ESG, not results, to America's working class. Washington got rich. You know, 3 of the top 10 earning income zip codes are right here in the US. While millions of young Americans couldn't start families, buy a home, get married. In the upside-down economy, illegal aliens were welcomed while they suppressed American wages and enjoyed taxpayer benefits. Obviously, not to mention the threat to our national and economic security. And Americans obviously got wise to the act, and thankfully, they elected President Trump to turn the tide. And in 7 months, we've obviously seen real change, and it's securing the border, it's deporting illegal aliens, it's restoring the rule of law and turning back the Biden crime wave, including right here in Washington, thankfully. It's 100% of net new job creation has gone to US-born workers. We're eliminating roles for tens of thousands of woke deep state bureaucrats, cutting over $1 trillion of wasteful federal spending, with hopefully much more to come. And even extraneous activist agencies are being defunded. Thankfully, we're returning the focus to unshackling our small businesses and entrepreneurs, and President Trump's rightly standing up to our adversaries and our allies to replace a predatory trade policy with fair trade. This will level the playing field and restore national security, and we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff revenue while ending inflation and cutting taxes. I mean, that's a lot for 7 months. And he's ending about a half dozen wars and making our nation safe again. But at every step of that path towards success, you've seen this happen. Wall Street howled and Main Street cheered. The corporate, political, and media elite predicted doom. Now we know who was right. Workers' wages and productivity are on the rise. The economy is growing even faster, 3.3% in the last quarter. And the strength of the booming private sector investment is shown in over $15 trillion in economic investment that's coming right here in America. Obviously, none of us are surprised by these results, but it's completely contrary to the Wall Street Beltway media narrative. President Trump didn't turn our economy upside down, he turned it back right side up. Now, it's hard to believe that it needs to be said, but the government was designed to put our workers, our citizens, our values, our economic security, our national security first. That's finally happening again. And so I'll give you an example from Main Street, because that's what my role is today at the Small Business Administration. As passionate as I am about the entire America First agenda, which I was incredibly blessed to be able to advance when I was in the US Senate during President Trump's first term, I'm really focused on the growth of small business. And why does small business matter to America? You may know that it's 99% of every business in every single state across this country. Small business makes America run. It's the conduit of the US economic policy agenda to every corner of this nation. And that's true for job creation, for innovation. The small business really carries tremendous weight, and that's why President Trump loves to say, Kelly, small business is big business. They create 2 out of every 3 new jobs. They account for nearly half of our workforce and our GDP, and they obviously bring tremendous character and quality to our communities. And it's not just Main Street. Small business is manufacturing. 98% of all of America's manufacturers are small businesses. Now, that means we have over 600,000 manufacturers that employ over 5 million workers. It's our defense suppliers, it's our automotive components, you name the industry. And while the media promotes a narrative that we just can't build things in America anymore, we must outsource it to the CCP. We actually have 600,000 producers doing that just as we speak. Our nation rose to power, prosperity, and peace as a producing economy. Made in America was our national identity, a source of strength, a source of opportunity, and we can do it grit. Now, we built everything, and when we built, we innovated. I mean, think about our innovations, from the assembly line to fracking to the chip to AI and beyond. All of that entrepreneurial drive came from our productive capacity. And those innovations empowered us to build more, to build better during war and peace. We went from Kitty Hawk to the moon in 66 years. This is something that people said we could not ever do. So the things we built, the wars we won in America's productive era drew us together, and it created a sense of achievement, of aspiration. Now, obviously, when globalists put Main Street behind Wall Street, we shifted our focus and became really focused on consumption and not production. You know, they also took aim at our most foundational and indispensable producers are families. Parents create the only invaluable asset, more Americans. Yet in the upside-down economy, liberal elites so corrupted government policy that it penalized families. It penalized kids. They refused to protect kids from the radical transgender ideology. They refused to protect girls' sports and locker rooms. For a generation, upside-down leaders tried to replace of, by, and for the people with you, the taxpayer, and consumer. They exchanged richer lives for cheaper goods and the dignity of work for higher profit margins. In the end, the only thing that they incentivized Americans to build was more debt. That's when we lost 70,000 factories, 5 million jobs over the last 40 years. And we lost more than economic output. We lost part of our national character, and we lost part of our strength. We lost a pillar of national security, which is the American worker and the American industry. And obviously, the pandemic exposed the weakness of our supply chains and our strong reliance on the CCP. We learned the hard way. There's an asymmetric risk-reward trade-off when you try to outsource prosperity and import national unity. Now we're returning to building and to the lasting prosperity that American values that we need to restore by investing right here at home. And small businesses are already doing that. Obviously, they've endured tough times in the last 4 or 5 years, and all they needed was a government on their side to do that. So we're focused right now at the SBA on manufacturing, on Made in America. At no time in our recent history do we have a chance to build in America, and I've been so blessed to launch our Made in America Manufacturing Initiative. We're doing a lot of important things like cutting $100 billion in regulation and red tape that's suppressing our ability to make things here. We're producing an insourcing guide on our website at sba.gov. You can actually see 1 million domestically based suppliers. We don't have to bring things in from China. We have tremendous productive capacity. We're trying to make sure small businesses can source right here. We're also supporting legislation that will double manufacturing loans. Right now, we're doing about 100 manufacturing loans every single week. We're working with the Department of Labor. I think this administration's done a tremendous job to tear down barriers between federal agencies to work together. And with the Department of Labor, we're working on apprenticeships for factories, and I've walked dozens and dozens of factory floors in my 50-state tour of this country. The productive capacity, the ingenuity, the spirit of the American worker is alive and well. We just need to reward it. Now, we have 400,000 open manufacturing jobs today. That number is going to rise to about 5 million in the next 10 years. We need to have the skilled workforce of the future. So I'm really excited about the work that we're getting done there. Within the agency, we've right-sized the agency, cutting headcount almost in half, cutting our spending by $3 billion. And just like a small business, we're doing more with less. We're on pace for a record year in loan volume. So when people say, you're cutting people, you're cutting bureaucracy, it's going to hurt small business, it's actually helping small businesses get access to more resources. We've also ended discriminatory debanking practices. You may have seen last week, we put out a letter to all 5,000 banks participating in the SBA to end discriminatory divisive debanking that was almost required under the Obama and Biden administrations. You might remember Operation Choke Point and Choke Point 2.0. So we're ending those practices. Small businesses know that this administration's working for them. Look what's happened. We've got small business optimism above the 52-year average and at a 5-month high, thanks to lower taxes, the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's a Main Street pro-worker bill. We've got deregulation. We've got increased fair trade, finally. And so the tide is turning and America's economy is right side up again. But for all the trillions of dollars and millions of jobs that are going to be rebuilt, the Made in America economy, it'll be hard to measure one of the most important things that you can't find on a spreadsheet. You can't put a dollar value on the hope of communities, on renewed faith in the future. and on the restoration of our values in this country. And finally, the flourishing of our families for generation to come. It's truly invaluable. And so thanks to President Trump, and together with all of you and the private sector, because that's what we're here to empower the private sector, we are gonna make the only thing that we can make, which is America great again. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.